Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. As you can see on the slide, just to make sure you're in the right Zoom room, this is maintaining family connection and promoting enhanced well-being through strategic community partnerships. So today, we're going to just talk about our work as the Parent Training and Information Center of South Carolina and our partnership with Department of Social Services. Sometimes it glitches when I try to advance my slides. I'm not sure why. Okay, so typically I don't have a fancy introduction, and I like to tell people who it is that is speaking to them. So this is just a little brief snapshot in addition to what Ms. Bradley told you, but I just think it's important to share that as a professional that works at Family Connection, which is a family serving organization, I get to share my perspective and my story through both a parent lens and a professional voice. We grew our family through foster care, kinship care, and adoption, and that will kind of play into to the partnership and the things I'm going to share later in the presentation. All of my children, we are kind of the ABCs of the alphabet soup, have special medical health care needs, mental health challenges, impacts of trauma, IEPs, 504s, all the numbers and letters. We have a lot of family dynamics that we are sensitive to with having 4 children, but 2 are different biological sibling sets, and our son Jack, who is biracial, so always looking at and advocating for best practice and services and interventions that look through that equity lens. And of course, I'm an advocate, like many of us that do this work. My experience has shaped my work trajectory as well. So hopefully at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to identify factors in early intervention and special education, as well as the healthcare systems that promote prevention and well-being for our at-risk children and families. And when I say at risk, in this particular setting, we're going to be talking about children in foster care who also have special education needs. And so that makes them an at-risk population. And we'll hopefully you'll be able to understand the unique needs of children and youth with disabilities as it relates to their child welfare experience. And we'll talk about some preventative supports and resources. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be really sharing as one of the themes of this conference, our partnership with the Department of Social Services. And so kind of the key factors or themes throughout our collaboration that I just want to highlight. You'll see these kind of trickle throughout the presentation are at-risk populations who I just shared. And the reason that this is important is because we know that children and youth who witness or are subject to abuse and neglect often face many difficulties in a range: cognitive, linguistic, mental health, emotional, behavioral, and also educational. So that's going to be our focus today. Children in child welfare have unique needs as far as special education is concerned. There was a research study that estimated around 31% of foster youth qualified for or received special education services. And this is a rate that is 5 times higher than their typical peers who are not in the child welfare system. We're going to talk about this partnership, kind of define a strategic partnership and how we got there. Everyone wants to know, well, how did you do it? So we're going to talk about that too, and how the partnership creates value for both organizations. And we'll talk about the improved outcomes. We know that a national study of foster care alumni showed that if just youth had 1 fewer placement and change per year, that they were twice as likely to graduate from high school before they aged out of care. So that's important. And then I'm going to share some resources with you as well. So let's define strategic partnership first before we get into how we did this. And so for the purpose of this collaboration, we're going to define that using 5 principles or strategies that we kind of thought about as we were proposing this collaboration. So we wanted to identify that potential partner, which was the Department of Social Services. We needed to determine the benefits of the partnership because it's a two-way street. So how we can help meet needs and what were the needs of the department that we could help fill. Determine the benefits of that and meet with those partners, and then decide the roles and responsibilities that each of us would play as we work together to try to improve outcomes for children in care, and then develop an action plan and leverage those resources. So as a partner, why did we want to partner with them? Let's start with why. We realized as our work progressed, I mentioned earlier that we are the Parent Training Information Center. And what that means is under the Individuals with Disability Education Act, every state is federally funded to have at least one parent center. The feds recognize that it is so overwhelming to navigate the education system that money is given under Part D of that IDEA law to fund these centers. And so our main objective is to train parents, help them know their rights, help them understand the education system so that they feel confident in advocating for their child's needs. And we also train professionals as well. So we knew that just based on our calls and referrals that there was a huge gap in the education services that were being, I was going to say provided for, but really not being provided for children and youth in care. And even despite their best efforts, foster families, biological families, adoptive families, and even our DSS staff just were not really trained and equipped to understand how to navigate that and help support children and youth. So we wanted to offer them something that would make our partnership beneficial. And so what we had to offer was, since we are the designated PTI for the state, we were able to offer training to their DSS well-being teams. In 2020, when we got a new director over social services, child well-being teams were created regionally. So there are 4, and they are comprised of a group of community liaison specialists, nurses, data management, kind of just when you think about well-being, the whole well-being of the child, there are these core groups, and then they help support their frontline staff. So we wanted to introduce them to really at first just the basics of understanding special education. We wanted to share our education partner program that we had that was already in existence. We already had children in care. We already had foster parents calling and referring themselves, and we would help them navigate and support them through eligibility or maybe creating an IEP or a 504. But we didn't have a direct line of contact, and we knew we weren't meeting the needs and reaching the capacity internally also with DSS. So we offered a direct line of contact, which was myself. And then something that was unique in this partnership also is that our staff that are supporting children in care and the caseworkers, including myself, had that lived experience in the child welfare system through being a foster parent, a kinship provider, and adoptive parent. And so then we needed to move on to develop that relationship with DSS so we could have a strong partnership that would be able to meet the needs of all of our families. We knew that we could not do that alone, and that we would have to rely on successful development of strategic partnerships to reach our families that we call special populations. Those are designated as well under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and those include foster parents, military families, parents with disabilities, our our Latino families, our migrant population. So when you think about special populations, any group of children that are highly mobile, which increases the likelihood that there's going to be a gap in services. So getting in the door, why family connection, as I shared, because we are the PTI and we could connect on that professional and personal level with caseworkers and families due to our shared experience. We began building relationships there. We did our research. We knew but had to find concrete facts nationwide and within our state that was indicating a significant gap in educational outcomes in our highly mobile populations, and especially those who have experienced abuse and neglect. And a clear understanding of what we had to offer. So we knew that we could impact children who were 40% more likely to have special education needs than their peers. We already knew that. So we wanted to be able to offer our knowledge and expertise and our technical support to be able to help families have better outcomes, and for our DSS staff to feel more confident in their skills whenever they were supporting their frontline staff or their families. And so we also had to maintain that communication and relationships. And we did that by just being very open and honest, building trust, sharing what our goals and values are, and having regular and consistent communication. Because like I mentioned earlier, we know partnership is a two-way street. And I'll get into a little bit more of the specifics of how we did that. And so typically, I'll just be very transparent. Our CEO usually talks about, we do this together sometimes, usually talks about the strategic partnership and kind of the logistics and the business side of it. And then I get to talk about my experience and why I'm passionate about this and how it really became a catalyst for approaching this work. And so on this picture you'll see right here is actually one of my sons, Dakota, on the day of his adoption. He was 4 years old when he came into care with us. And I'm going to just briefly share his story so that you have a better understanding of what a real life example of this means when we're looking at educational gaps and being able to support families and staff. And so I use this quote, as painful as it may be, a significant emotional event can be the catalyst for choosing a direction that serves us more effectively. Always look for the learning, Louisa May Alcott. And so at the time, it was pretty painful. I think it was divine intervention for sure, but also a little bit of a blessing that we didn't know what was to come so that we could forge forward and not be caught up in the painful pieces, but reflecting back just the enormous task of getting Dakota what he needed and what he deserved, which I'll share a little bit more of. So just a quick overview. In 2009, when Dakota was born, he failed his newborn hearing screening. We did not know that until I requested records when he came to live with us. As I said, he was 4. So in 2014, he and his brother had their first placement with us. But prior to that, they had been in 4 different placements, and one including a group home. And there was a kind of what they call a universal document that shared Dakota's strengths and weaknesses. And on that were several mental health diagnoses that ended up not being accurate. And I'll get to that in a second. We were told that he would most likely need to be institutionalized, that he would not be able to successfully graduate or contribute positively to society in any way. He had severe behaviors, maladaptive behaviors with communication, and we just really didn't know anything else except for what we were told on that sheet and what we were observing. So he did a little bit of preschool, or of course I was called multiple times to pick him up or change to half days. At the time he wasn't, he was 4.5, but he had not had any medical or education intervention. He had, was not potty trained, had some behaviors due to communication. So in 2016, when he started public school, he was placed in a self-contained class. And during this time, we had done, it was over 70 appointments, evaluations, and assessments within 3 months. And so what we came to learn was that Dakota was actually, going back to 2009, I was requesting those records as a foster parent, looking through, trying to gather information, trying to use my professional hat as an early childhood educator, but also being in the position now of being his parent and advocating for him. We found out that he was actually completely deaf in the left ear. He had unilateral hearing loss, so he did not have a hearing aid. And as you can imagine, being 4.5 and being deaf and not knowing where sound is coming from, he also had very delayed speech, less than 30% intelligible to people that didn't know him. And so you can imagine, after the trauma from being taken out of his home, being in multiple placements, not being able to communicate, the behaviors that followed. He also had 2 vision impairments that were hereditary that caused him to not be able to, if he wanted to look a teacher in the eye, or an adult or anyone, he has to actually lift his head up and move it to be able to see. His eyes don't move past midline. And he doesn't have a muscle here in his eyes, like when you get an eye lift, like I need. He didn't have muscle here, so his lids are very low. So of course he looked, or seemed to be, disobedient, defiant, had the oppositional defiant disorder at 4.5, that diagnosis, which again was incorrect. So we started working on those things right away. We got him glasses, we got him hearing aid. Come to find out, he had sensory processing disorder. So as soon as we provided some simple strategies for toileting, he became potty trained. I say that now, going through it, it wasn't so simple, but easy interventions, and ADHD, and of course anxiety from trauma and being moved around at such a little age so many times. So he started making gains. He was actually getting in trouble for whenever he was included in some gen ed classes from a self-contained class. He was doing higher level math and work, but then would go back to a self-contained class and be given coloring sheets. And he started getting in trouble for that. So we, in an IEP meeting, I really advocated for him to be given access to general ed to see how he would do. And unfortunately, one of the responses from the administration was, we can try that when he's earned it. Well, you can imagine that did not go over very well. And so we made a decision. We kept him in our district, but we actually did move to another public school in our district. And part of it was, I think, that he was kind of given a fresh start. He wasn't known as the child in foster care, the child with the behaviors. But also at the same time, he really had some great supports and evaluations and services put in place that really helped him meet his potential. So I say all that to tell you now, in 2022, as a 7th grader, Dakota is now in all general education classes. He is in advanced placement, gifted and talented, math, science, and ELA. We still have our struggles, especially around social skills and emotional regulation. But as you can see from this timeline that I've shared, from what we were told at the beginning of placement to now where he is, this is the reason that, for me, that this work is so important. And of course, statewide and nationally, why we recognize special populations in education. Because children can thrive when they are given the right supports. And so I just like to share that story as a little bit of why we do this work. And so part two of our approach, again, going back kind of to that systems, whenever we're talking about community partnership, again, people always want to know, well, what did you do? How exactly did you get in there? And I always say that the story that I just shared is not to be punitive or disparaging to any systems, not to child welfare, not to school, but to really look at, he touched so many systems of care that, from 4.5, from failing a hearing screening to all of the needs that he had, he missed out on early intervention. We know that that is key. And so, he didn't have baby net. So at 4.5, he was really starting over and has played a lot of catch up. And we want to change that. We want to improve the process. Again, highly mobile populations, he might have had a referral started somewhere, but he moved around so much that there was really no follow through with that. And so we want to look at systematic change, but we had to first bring the issue to light and approach our partners at DSS and say, this is just one example, but there are any given day in South Carolina over 4,000 children in care. And we know with that research, with their special education needs, that there are a lot of kids that are still not receiving the supports that could help them reach and be their best self and really change the trajectory of that educational journey. So we wanted to also increase internal capacity within DSS. We wanted the community liaisons who were on the child wellbeing team to feel confident and knowledgeable when they were helping support their staff, as well as supporting families. So that's where the training came in. We were really a neutral partner, and I think that helps a lot. I often say we're like Switzerland. We don't come in and take sides. We aren't fussing at anyone. We aren't, yelling or raising Cain, but we are bringing the issues to light, and we are helping to provide better interventions and strategies. A lot of my work in this field has been turning my emotions into advocacy, as I shared that story. I was not, parents typically aren't in the place to be able to kind of look and make a system change when you're going through it. So after reflection, looking at our story and then matching that with the research and the special populations that we know are identified, being able to share that parent experience and have the knowledge of how child welfare works, and to be able to tell the Department of Social Services that they would have one direct contact instead of having to go multiple routes of making a referral or go through multiple people. They would be able to come to, and not Jena Martin, but the Director of Special Populations, to be able to really mainstream that communication and really build that trust and that knowledge so that we could do good work together. And also, I'll just say part of how I'll save that just 1 second. I'll save it for here. Part of our story. So, our story as this strategic partnership is, like I mentioned before, being able to train the regional child welfare staff, being able to bring a parent voice, to embed that at local, state, and national committees. When I first began this position, I was invited to be on one of the committees at DSS for Medical and Educational Healthcare Committee. And I soon found out, as I was sharing, that I was the first and only foster parent at the table. And so, again, not being disparaging, but bringing light to no matter how well-intentioned these policies are, these meetings, if you don't have someone sharing lived experience to share what truly is helpful or where the struggles really are, we're missing the boat there. So being able to provide resource development, we created easy to read education materials. The trainings began as, just like I said earlier, basic IDEA and ADA, which is where your 504 plans come in. And then we progress those trainings to more of an expert level as we move through our contract and our partnership together. And then I was able to provide technical assistance and one-on-one support to both families and to the caseworkers, whether that be staffing cases or attending meetings with them. And so really our story was being able to meet with the new state director. I think it was around 3 times that we met in person, establish that relationship. We were presenting to foster parents once a month at no cost to again help increase their confidence so that they could best advocate for the children in their care. We presented several times at DSS staff meetings and attended those state meetings where we kind of began to share some of those systematic hurdles and barriers that we were seeing. We met with key staff to get the partnership, developed, and did our research and really just made sure that the proposal would be beneficial to both, that we would work well together, especially since this was a new partnership, and that it would be a fair shared return for both of us involved. So I'm going to just share with you, I'm going to check my time, 10:30. Okay, we're doing good. I'm going to share with you a video. This is one of the regional child community liaisons that I work closely with, Miss Jena Charles, and she's just going to briefly share for about 2 minutes her perspective. You've heard my perspective as a parent, so I wanted you to hear the professional side as well, so we can share the whole picture.
Hello, my name is Jena Charles and I work for the Department of Social Services, and I'm the Community Liaison Coordinator for the Midlands region of DSS. In 2020, DSS moved to create well-being teams within the region, and with these teams we had positions like myself, and we were able to, Family Connections was able to come in and give us the training that we needed in order to be successful in these new positions, and that is to advocate for children's educational rights. And so it was a wonderful thing for the partnership, because I've worked with children in education, but I needed more skills and I needed more knowledge. And so the partnership gave us training. And with that training, we were able to pass that knowledge on to our frontline staff. And one of the things that Family Connections did was attend IEP meetings with us, 504 plan meetings with us, gave us helpful feedback. We were also able to get one-on-one consultation with Family Connections regarding the child's IEPs and understanding the IEP, troubleshooting some difficult cases that we had where the schools necessarily was not providing the exact needs of that child. So Family Connections was able to really give us a lot of knowledge, and it gave me confidence to be able to serve the children better. Our main point of contact was Jena Martin in this collaboration, and she has been a wonderful asset to our team. I don't think I could have been as successful in this new position that I had in 2020 without her help, her guidance. I really enjoyed the collaboration because it's been very helpful. It's increased my knowledge base and gave me more confidence to advocate for our children. Our children deserve the best education that they possibly can have. A lot of times with children in DSS system, they've been displaced in their homes. So making sure that they're having stability in their education settings is very important, and it's very important for us to advocate for them. And so the connection with our Family Connection partner has helped me be a better advocate for our children.
So I'll be very honest, it's very difficult to share a video where someone mentions your name. It makes me red every time. Jena is wonderful, and I wish she had said the director of special populations, because it really is Family Connection. It's not me, but I did want to highlight the things that she touched on, which was the training, the one-on-one support, having a direct contact, building capacity, and increasing her knowledge. And she was not told what to say, so it really meant a lot that she was able to express all of the things that we had talked about earlier as far as what our intentions were to do, to be able to share that from the department side. Okay. So I just wanted to share, like I said, I've shared, I think it's great to have the whole picture. These are just some quotes from some of our families whenever we've done training for them or supported them one-on-one. I think it's important, like I said earlier, to know that the audience that we are, the population that we are trying to help be successful is truly feeling that way and getting the services that they need. So being able to better understand the relationship or what their son needs on a daily basis and build a better relationship with the school, being able to just listen without judgment and empathize what it means to go through some of these things, being concerned about their child's well-being, offered advice to help him make progress. Those are the things that we all strive to do. And so being able to hear that, I think, from a parent perspective and professional, and from the department side and from the families we serve, is important. So this is just kind of a very quick snapshot of where we've been and where we're going. We started this partnership in 2020, and of course, that's when the world shut down. So it was going to already be tricky and challenging creating a new partnership and taking on this work. So we had to definitely modify some things as far as our meetings were concerned and our trainings. Of course, everything flipped virtually, but we were still able to do it. You can kind of see the numbers that we, in the very first year, those 21 bi-monthly calls with the DSS staff, that was with me and the child well-being team. So we were very much in communication with scheduled times to talk, where we had a loose agenda or with staff cases, or even do an even deeper dive into a training that I'd maybe done before. The 30 families served were those direct referrals to me, where those families would have support directly from me. I was still supporting DSS staff, but supporting the families, whether it be making referrals, helping them to create documentation to send the school, advocacy efforts, or attending educational meetings, attending those state level meetings and staffings, 54 of those, to really share what we were doing, but also, again, bring that parent voice as their parent training center into those meetings as decisions and policies were being looked at. We provided that first year 12 of those entry-level trainings to the child well-being teams, and then created tip sheets based on every training so that they could refer back to those. In year 2, you can see we moved to monthly calls, and sometimes we took off if it was a summer month, or if it was maybe in December is the very, very busy month for the department. So we let them lead with the scheduling. Again, 30 families referred for that direct service support, but over 100 interactions with those families. And then 300 direct communications between the child welfare staff and myself, which I think speaks again to why we get to go to year 2 and year 3, is because that continued communication and building and maintaining that relationship is so vital to this. And then we moved to 8 expert level training, so where we would take bigger, more in-depth, or intensive looks at some of the categories under IDEA, whether it be behavior, whether it be specific accommodations or modifications for children, actually walking through IEPs to learn what each section of that individualized education plan means, making sure goals were measurable. It was really a pretty intensive kind of workshop type training effort. And then as we're moving into year 3, the focus is going to be this year training those frontline staff so that we build capacity internally with the department, moving to monthly technical assistant calls. I've now been able to join interagency staff meetings. So these are usually for our very escalated cases, and usually older youth that are maybe near to aging out of care or leaving perhaps a residential facility moving into a more traditional facility. Maybe they're being reunified, but those have input from an education perspective from myself. And then we have the Department of Mental Health, of course, DSS, DDSN, several partners that are on those calls to make sure that we are indeed looking at the whole child and not missing any of those gaps for potential services and interventions, and continuing to build that internal capacity. So every training that we do, I just like to share this, we do measure it, going back to what we talked about earlier with research and data being important. We want to be able to show success and measurable income, so we outcomes. So we always measure high quality, usefulness, and relevance of the training that we're doing, and then ask a few other questions and ask for some open comments. So as you can see, we have increased their knowledge. They do a pre and post test for every training because we do want to see if there's an increase in knowledge or skill or confidence in advocacy. So we have had some really amazing results and feel like this is part of that shared kind of return on investment both ways for our partners. And that is the end of my slide. I wanted to see quickly, and Don, you might have to help me. I wanted to bring up our webpage real quick to show our resources. Can I do that? Will I have to stop sharing?
Yes, you'll need to stop sharing.
Okay.
Just for a moment.
Okay. Hang with me, you all, if you don't mind. I just want to show you because we have free resources available to parents and providers and schools, and it's just really great resource for you to be able to share with your families or your staff. I'm gonna go, okay, I'm gonna share again, and then we can get to some questions. Okay, can you all see this? I see Miss Pringle. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? You're the only one I can see on my screen. Michelle?
You're good.
Good, okay, thank you. I didn't mean to call you out. I couldn't see anyone else. Thank y'all. So if you go to our website at familyconnectionsc.org, there's a drop down right here for resources. And so all of these resources on here are free. It says add to cart, but it's at no cost. And you can download these as a PDF or request that we mail them to you, to your office, to a parent at home. We're glad to do that. But you can see they go all the way from our NICU, which is age 0, all the way up to 26. And we are across disability, which means we don't just focus on autism or Down syndrome. We cover all disability, and we're in all 46 counties. And I say that so that you know that any of these you can utilize or relevant in your districts, in your homes, for your families. And the tip sheets are wonderful. The parent guides actually help create the content for, because I believe it's very important for families to know and be able to read at a level that is not, so academically focused, or all of those letters and ABC jargon that we face with many of our systems of care. And also, all of our services and our materials are available in Spanish as well. We have 4, I believe, bicultural bilingual employees on staff to help do this work as well. And one of my favorite resources I just wanted to share is 5 minutes, okay, is Your Child's Journey Workbook. And this is a tool, an organized tool that parents can take to kind of all different providers, whether it's the doctor, whether it's to school, whether it's they're going to a new camp and want their counselors to know, but it kind of keeps all the child's information. It's very strengths-based. It keeps all their information in one place together, and they can kind of update that yearly. That's one of my favorite resources I wanted you all to see. So I just got the 5 minutes mark, so I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. And open it up. I have not read any of the chat. So Ms. Bradley, do you want me to read through them or do you want to read them out? I don't know
Well,
if there's
at
any.
this time, there aren't any questions that are in the chat.
Okay,
You know, some comments. All he needed was an opportunity in reference to your child. This information was so helpful. I am a kinship foster parent as well. So you have about 4 more minutes. Well, actually, about 9 more minutes. So if there's anything else
okay.
that you want to share, you can at this time,
Okay.
because there are no questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we can do to support families through our work as the PTI, or specifically in your district, or how to reach out to us? Anyone can make a referral online or on our website, or our Family Information Center line is Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Again, all of our services are at no cost. Families can refer themselves, professionals can refer families. We just ask that the family knows that they're going to be getting a call from us. We're very brave in our advocacy, but we don't like to shock parents and tell them that they were referred and they didn't know that. So you're welcome to share that information as well, or follow up with me. I'll put my email in the chat as well. It was on that first slide, but if you have any follow-up questions you think about later, or resources that you might need, feel free to reach out. Y'all are so quiet.
So again, you have other comments, useful information, great resources and presentation. Thank you for the presentation. Awesome job, Miss Martin. And kudos to that. We would like to thank you for sharing with us this morning your expertise as well as your personal experience, and, you know, being transparent about your family as a whole. Thank you for the useful information. And if that is all, that will be the end of the first session.
Thank you, everyone.